I never expected to walk into my childhood home and find my entire life packed into cardboard boxes by the front door. The sight hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. There sat my mother Patricia, flanked by my stepsister Madison and her husband Frank, all wearing expressions that told me everything I needed to know. Madison cradled her newborn against her shoulder, that familiar smirk playing across her lips. Patricia's voice cut through the silence like ice water. Boris Madison needs your room for the baby. You have until midnight to find somewhere else to live. 28 years of being her son, 2 years of paying half the mortgage. And this was how it ended. The words hung in the air like poison gas, suffocating any hope I had left for maternal love or basic human decency. I stared at Patricia, searching her face for any trace of the woman who used to read me bedtime stories and kiss my scraped knees. Nothing. Just cold calculation and misplaced loyalty. Are you serious right now? I managed to choke out my voice cracking despite my best efforts to maintain composure. Mom, I've been paying half the mortgage for 2 years. This is my home too. Patricia waved her hand dismissively as if swatting away an annoying fly. That was rent. Boris, don't be dramatic. Madison has a family now and they need space. The baby can't sleep in that tiny guest room. Madison shifted the infant to her other arm, her eyes gleaming with victory. The master bedroom has that attached bathroom too. It'll be so much more convenient for nighttime feedings. She spoke with the casual cruelty of someone who had orchestrated this entire scenario. Frank remained buried behind his newspaper, the rustling pages the only sound he contributed to the destruction of my world. His silence spoke volumes about where his loyalties lay, and it certainly wasn't with the stepson he'd tolerated for the past decade. This is insane, I said, my hands trembling with a mixture of rage and disbelief. I've contributed more to this household than anyone except you, Mom. How can you just throw me out like garbage? Don't raise your voice at me, young man. Patricia snapped, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. I've made my decision. Madison's family comes first, and that's final. The baby began crying, its wails echoing through the living room like a soundtrack to my exile. Madison bounced the child gently, her eyes never leaving my face. She was savoring every moment of my humiliation. Where am I supposed to go? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice despite my determination to maintain dignity. That's not my problem anymore, Patricia replied, returning her attention to the television as if I'd already vanished from existence. I climbed the stairs to my bedroom one last time, each step feeling like a march toward the gallows. The hallway that had witnessed my childhood homework struggles, teenage heartbreaks, and adult triumphs now felt foreign and hostile. Madison's belongings were already scattered across my dresser, her clothes hanging in my closet like invading forces claiming conquered territory. My hands shook as I pulled suitcases from under the bed, the same luggage I'd used for college moves and business trips. Never had I imagined using them for a forced evacuation from my own home. Every item I packed felt like another piece of my identity being stripped away. As I folded clothes and gathered personal documents, voices drifted up from downstairs. Madison was on the phone, her tone bright and celebratory. No, you don't understand, Jessica. I finally got him out. Mom totally chose my side just like I knew she would. The look on his face was priceless. My stomach lurched as her words confirmed what I'd suspected. This wasn't about space or convenience. This was about power manipulation and Madison's pathological need to be the center of attention. I called my grandmother Helen, my voice barely steady enough to explain the situation. Her gasp of shock and immediate offer of her spare room provided the only warmth I'd felt all evening. "Pack everything, sweetheart," she said, her voice fierce with protective anger. "You come here right now. I've always known that girl was poison and your mother's lost her mind." As I loaded boxes into my car, making multiple trips in the cool October air, I noticed Madison watching from the living room window. Her expression wasn't satisfied anymore. It was calculating, predatory, like she was already planning her next move. The final trip to my car nearly broke me. I carried my framed college diploma, the award from my first programming competition, and a photo of my father who'd died when I was 12. These remnants of my achievements and memories felt so small in my hands, reduced to artifacts of a life being erased. Patricia never came outside. She never said goodbye. She never acknowledged that she was losing a son along with gaining space for her precious stepdaughter. But as I drove away from the house where I'd grown up, where I'd learned to ride a bike and had my first kiss on the front porch, I made a silent promise to myself. This wasn't the end of my story. This was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where I'd build something they could never take away. The last thing I saw in my rearview mirror was Madison's silhouette in the window, still watching, still calculating, still hungry for more destruction to feed her insatiable ego. What I didn't know then was how much more painful things would get before they got better, and I had no idea about the financial betrayal I was about to discover hidden in a stack of bank statements that would change everything. Grandmother Helen's spare bedroom became my sanctuary and launching pad simultaneously. The walls, painted a soothing sage green, provided the peace I desperately needed to process the emotional earthquake that had shattered my family relationships. Helen never asked intrusive questions or offered empty platitudes. Instead, she cooked hearty meals and shared stories about resilience that helped me understand I wasn't the first person to survive family betrayal. "Your grandfather lost his entire family during the Depression," she told me one evening over her famous pot roast. "Sometimes the people who should love us most are the ones who hurt us deepest. But that doesn't define your worth, Boris. Your character does." I threw myself into my work at TechFlow Solutions with an intensity that surprised even my driven colleagues. The office, a sleek space downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, became my second home. I arrived before sunrise and stayed past sunset, channeling my pain into code that solved complex business problems for our clients. Programming had always been my escape, but now it became my salvation. Each successful project built my confidence back up line by line, function by function. My supervisor, Jennifer Walsh, noticed my dedication and began assigning me increasingly challenging assignments. "Boris, your work on the inventory management system was exceptional," she said during my quarterly review. "I'm recommending you for the senior developer track." The promotion came with a substantial salary increase and leadership responsibilities that excited me more than I'd expected. Leading a team of junior programmers reminded me that I had valuable skills and knowledge to offer the world, regardless of what my family thought of me. During this rebuilding phase, I met Sarah Chen at a coffee shop near the office. She was reviewing marketing materials for a local nonprofit that provided job training for veterans. Her passion for helping others and her genuine kindness drew me in immediately. Sarah had shoulder-length black hair and wore glasses that highlighted her intelligent brown eyes. "You look like you could use a friend," she said, noticing me sitting alone with my laptop, probably looking more isolated than I realized. Our friendship developed slowly and naturally. Sarah never pushed for details about my living situation or family dynamics. She simply accepted me as I was offering companionship without demands or expectations. We'd meet for coffee twice a week, discussing everything from technology trends to her nonprofit work to our shared love of hiking. "There's something peaceful about being in nature," Sarah observed during one of our conversations. "It reminds you that there's a whole world beyond whatever drama is happening in your personal life." She was right. The hiking trails outside the city became another form of therapy, helping me process the anger and hurt while appreciating the beauty that still existed in the world. 6 months passed without any contact from Patricia or Madison. The silence felt both liberating and heartbreaking. Part of me hoped they'd realize their mistake and reach out, but a larger part of me was learning to live without their toxicity. Helen filled some of that void with unconditional love and family stories I'd never heard before. She revealed patterns of behavior that helped me understand Patricia's choices weren't really about me at all. Your mother always struggled with boundaries, Helen explained one afternoon while we worked in her garden. Even as a child, she'd sacrifice anything to avoid conflict or abandonment. When Frank came along with Madison, she probably saw refusing them as risking another loss. This insight didn't excuse Patricia's behavior, but it helped me understand the psychology behind her choices. Madison had masterfully exploited Patricia's deepest fears and insecurities. My professional life continued flourishing. TechFlow Solutions landed several major contracts, and I played key roles in their successful implementation. The work challenged me intellectually while providing financial security I'd never experienced before. During a team meeting about upcoming projects, Jennifer mentioned a significant opportunity that made my blood run cold. "We're pitching a massive software integration contract to Coleman Industries," she announced. "It's potentially worth 7 figures over 3 years. The primary decision-maker for vendor selection is Derek Coleman, their procurement director." My heart stopped. Derek Coleman. Madison's husband, Derek Coleman. After the meeting, I discreetly researched Coleman Industries' leadership structure. There he was on their website staff directory. Derek Coleman, procurement director, married to Madison according to his LinkedIn profile. The same Derek who'd sat silently in my living room while his wife orchestrated my exile. The irony was overwhelming. The family that had rejected me might now hold the key to my professional future. But I was determined to handle this situation with complete integrity, letting my work speak for itself, regardless of personal history. As I prepared for the biggest presentation of my career, I had no idea how much more complicated things were about to become. Madison was about to enter my life again. But this time I held cards she didn't even know existed. The Coleman Industries project consumed my thoughts and energy for weeks as our team prepared the most comprehensive proposal in TechFlow's history. I led the technical specifications team designing a software integration system that would streamline their entire supply chain operation. The work was intricate and demanding, requiring long hours and meticulous attention to detail. Sarah noticed my increased stress levels and suggested we take a weekend camping trip to decompress. We drove 2 hours north to a state park where cell service was spotty, and the only sounds were wind through pine trees and water rushing over rocks in nearby streams. "You've been carrying some heavy burden lately," she observed as we sat around our campfire Saturday evening. "Want to talk about what's really bothering you?" I found myself sharing the whole story with her. The exile from my family home, the financial contributions that had been dismissed as mere rent, Madison's cruel satisfaction in my humiliation. Sarah listened without judgment, occasionally asking clarifying questions but never offering advice unless I requested it. "The strangest part is that Madison's husband might be the person who decides whether we get this massive contract," I concluded. "I don't know how to feel about that." "How do you want to handle it?" Sarah asked, prodding the fire with a stick. "The only way I know how. With complete professionalism and integrity. If our proposal is the best, we should win. If it's not, we shouldn't. Derek's connection to my family can't factor into business decisions." Sarah smiled, her face illuminated by the flickering flames. "That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. It shows who you really are underneath all this family drama." When I returned to work Monday morning refreshed and refocused, Jennifer called an all-hands meeting. TechFlow's preliminary proposal had advanced to the final round of consideration. Coleman Industries wanted detailed presentations from the top 3 vendors. "Boris, you'll be presenting the technical specifications," Jennifer announced. "Your expertise in integration systems is exactly what they need to hear." I spent 2 weeks perfecting my presentation, creating visualizations that would clearly demonstrate our solution's benefits. Every slide was crafted to showcase technical excellence without any hint of personal agenda. The presentation day arrived gray and drizzly, matching my nervous energy. Coleman Industries headquarters was an impressive glass and steel structure in the business district. As our team entered their conference room, I scanned the faces around the polished mahogany table. Derek Coleman sat at the far end looking older and more stressed than I remembered. He showed no recognition when he was introduced to our team, which wasn't surprising, given how little attention he'd paid me during family gatherings. My presentation went flawlessly. I explained complex technical concepts in accessible language, demonstrated cost savings projections, and answered every question with confidence and precision. Derek asked several probing questions that showed he understood the material and was genuinely interested in our solution. This integration approach could save us significant time and resources, he acknowledged during the question period. Your timeline seems aggressive, but achievable. After our presentation, as we packed up equipment and prepared to leave, Derek approached me privately. "Excuse me, Boris, you seem familiar somehow. Have we met before?" "I don't believe so," I replied diplomatically. "Perhaps you're thinking of someone else." He nodded uncertainly and returned to his colleagues, but I caught him glancing in my direction several more times. 3 days later, Patricia appeared in the grocery store checkout line behind me. I was purchasing ingredients for dinner with Sarah when I heard that familiar voice ordering the cashier to double bag her items. "Boris." Patricia's tone was cautious, almost fearful. I turned slowly, steeling myself for whatever emotional manipulation might follow. She looked older, more worn down than I remembered. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she wasn't sleeping well. "Hello, Patricia." I deliberately avoided calling her mom. "How have you been? You look good, different." "I'm fine, thriving actually." She shifted uncomfortably, clearly wanting to say more but struggling with the words. "I've been thinking about you lately, wondering how you're doing." "Really? That's interesting, considering you haven't called or texted once in 8 months. My directness seemed to catch her off guard. She fumbled with her purse, avoiding eye contact. "Things have been complicated at home. Madison's been struggling with the baby and Frank's been working extra hours. The house feels different without my mortgage payments," I finished coldly. Patricia flinched like I'd slapped her. "That's not what I meant." "Yes, it is, and we both know it." I paid for my groceries and walked toward the exit, but Patricia followed me into the parking lot. "Boris, please, can we talk, maybe have coffee sometime?" "Why?" "So you can justify abandoning your son for your stepdaughter's convenience. So you can explain how 28 years of being your child mattered less than Madison's temporary housing needs." "It wasn't like that," she protested weakly. "It was exactly like that, and we both know it." I loaded my groceries into the car and drove away, leaving Patricia standing alone beside her shopping cart in the evening drizzle. The encounter left me shaken, but also strangely empowered. I'd spoken my truth without cruelty or manipulation, just honest facts about what had happened. That evening, Sarah and I cooked dinner together in Helen's kitchen, preparing chicken parmesan and discussing the unexpected encounter with my mother. "How do you feel about seeing her?" Sarah asked while grating cheese. "Confused, angry, but also proud of myself for not getting pulled back into her drama." She looked like she regretted what happened. "Maybe, but regret without changed behavior is just self-pity." 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed with a Facebook message from Madison. After 8 months of silence, she was suddenly reaching out with friendly emoji and casual questions about my life. "Hi Boris, hope you're doing well. Heard you're working in tech now. That's so cool. Derek works with lots of tech companies. Maybe you guys know some of the same people." The message felt calculated and manipulative, exactly like Madison's usual approach. She was fishing for information, but I couldn't figure out her angle yet. I didn't respond immediately, instead screenshot the message to show Sarah. Her reaction was immediate and sharp. "She wants something. Madison doesn't do friendly without an agenda." "I know, I just can't figure out what she's after." "Be careful, Boris. Whatever she's planning, it's not going to benefit you." Sarah's warning proved more prophetic than either of us could have imagined. Madison wasn't just fishing for information. She was preparing to launch the most manipulative attack of her career, and I was about to become her primary target. The next morning, I arrived at work to find Madison sitting in TechFlow's reception area, tears streaming down her face and her hands protectively cradled over her stomach. Madison looked up from the reception area chair as I entered TechFlow's lobby, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She wore a flowing dress that seemed designed to emphasize her midsection, and her usual confidence had been replaced by what appeared to be desperate vulnerability. "Boris, thank God you're here. I need to talk to you. It's about Derek and the contract, and everything's falling apart." The receptionist, Carol, looked between us with obvious confusion and concern. Madison's dramatic appearance was drawing attention from other employees entering the building. "This isn't appropriate, Madison. This is my workplace. Please, just 5 minutes. I'm pregnant again and Derek doesn't know yet. His job is in trouble, and I heard TechFlow is bidding on a contract with Coleman Industries. I know it's a long shot, but maybe you could put in a good word." Shut. Her performance was masterful, hitting every emotional manipulation button she could find. The pregnancy announcement, the financial desperation, the pleading tone that suggested I held her family's fate in my hands. "Madison, that's not how business works. Contracts are awarded based on merit, not personal relationships." I know, but Derek's been under so much pressure lately. Budget cuts, restructuring, all kinds of corporate drama. If Coleman Industries doesn't get the right technology, partner, more jobs could be lost, including his. She was attempting to reframe her manipulation as concern for other people's employment, a classic Madison tactic. But I'd learned to recognize her strategies over the years. "I'm sorry you're going through difficulties, but I can't and won't compromise my professional integrity. If TechFlow's proposal is the best solution for Coleman Industries, we'll win the contract. If it's not, we shouldn't." Madison's expression flickered between frustration and desperation. "You don't understand. Derek's been working 60-hour weeks trying to save his department. The baby's due in 6 months and we can't afford to lose his insurance. Then Derek should focus on doing his job well, instead of sending his wife to manipulate his vendors." The words came out harsher than I'd intended, but Madison's presence at my workplace crossed a line that demanded clear boundaries. "That's not what this is," she protested, fresh tears forming. "I'm just scared, Boris. Our whole life could fall apart." "Your life fell apart because of your choices, not mine. And showing up at my job to ask for favors isn't going to fix whatever problems you've created." Security was beginning to take notice of our conversation. Carol had discreetly picked up her phone, probably calling management about the situation. "Madison, you need to leave, now. Don't contact me again and don't come to my workplace." She gathered her purse with exaggerated difficulty, playing up the pregnancy angle until the last possible moment. "I hope you remember this conversation when things get complicated, Boris. Family should help. Family. We stopped being family 8 months ago when you manipulated Mom into kicking me out of my own home." After Madison left, I spent 20 minutes explaining the situation to Jennifer, who listened with growing concern and anger. "Boris, if she contacts you again or shows up here, we're calling the police. This is harassment and we don't tolerate it." "I don't think it'll happen again." She got the message. But I was wrong about Madison backing down. I was also wrong about Derek Coleman's situation being as simple as budget pressures and corporate restructuring. 3 weeks later, Sarah and I drove to the mountains for a weekend getaway that would change both our lives forever. We'd booked a cabin near a lake where fall foliage painted the landscape in brilliant oranges and reds. Saturday evening, as we watched sunset reflect off the water, I felt more at peace than I had in months. Sarah sat beside me on the cabin's deck, her head resting on my shoulder as we shared comfortable silence. "Sarah, there's something I want to ask you." She lifted her head, her expression curious and warm. "What's that?" I pulled out the ring I'd been carrying for 2 weeks, a simple but elegant solitaire that caught the last rays of sunlight. Sarah's gasp of surprise and joy was everything I'd hoped for. "Sarah Chen, will you marry me?" Yes, absolutely yes. Her acceptance filled me with happiness I hadn't experienced since childhood. We spent the rest of the weekend planning our future together, discussing everything from wedding venues to career goals to the family we wanted to build. When we returned to the city Sunday evening, I called Helen with the news. Her excitement was infectious and genuine. "Oh, Boris, I'm so happy for you both. Sarah is wonderful and she clearly adores you. When do I get to help plan this wedding?" The engagement announcement on social media generated congratulations from colleagues, friends, and extended family members. Notably absent from the responses were Patricia and Madison, though I noticed both had viewed my posts. At work Monday morning, Jennifer called me into her office with updates about the Coleman Industries contract. "We're advancing to the final presentation phase. They've narrowed it down to TechFlow and one competitor. Derek Coleman specifically requested that you present the implementation timeline." "That's great news. When's the final presentation?" "Next Friday. This is the big one, Boris. Landing this contract could set TechFlow up for expansion into new markets." I spent the week refining our final proposal, incorporating feedback from Coleman Industries' technical team, and addressing every concern they'd raised during previous meetings. The implementation timeline was aggressive but achievable, and I was confident in our ability to deliver exceptional results. Wednesday evening, as I worked late preparing presentation materials, my secure phone buzzed with a call from TechFlow's legal department. "Boris, this is David Martinez from legal. I need to discuss something sensitive about the Coleman Industries contract. Can you come to my office?" Shucks. David's tone was serious in a way that immediately put me on alert. I saved my work and headed to the legal department, wondering what could require urgent after-hours consultation. "Boris, we've received some concerning information about Derek Coleman's procurement practices. Are you familiar with him personally?" "Yes, but I'd prefer not to discuss the details unless it's relevant to business." "It's relevant. We have evidence suggesting Derek Coleman has been accepting kickbacks from vendors in exchange for favorable contract terms. The FBI has opened an investigation." My stomach dropped as the implications hit me. Not only was Derek corrupt, but TechFlow could be inadvertently involved in a federal investigation if we weren't careful. "What does this mean for our proposal?" "We're reporting everything to Coleman Industries Ethics Board immediately. We want them to know TechFlow had no involvement in any improper activities." As I walked back to my car that night, my mind raced with questions. How long had Derek been taking bribes? Was Madison aware of his illegal activities? Had her desperate visit to my office been about more than just job security? The answers to those questions would prove more shocking than I ever could have imagined. The FBI investigation into Derek Coleman's corruption unfolded with stunning speed once TechFlow's legal team submitted their evidence. David Martinez explained the timeline during an emergency meeting Thursday morning. Federal agents executed search warrants at Coleman Industries yesterday afternoon. Derek Coleman was arrested at his office on charges of accepting bribes, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Coleman Industries' CEO wants to meet with us today to discuss the contract situation. Jennifer, David, and I drove to Coleman Industries headquarters that afternoon, where we met with CEO Richard Hamilton and Ethics Director Linda Foster. The atmosphere was tense but professional. "Gentlemen, lady, I want to personally apologize for the corruption in our procurement department," Hamilton began. "We had no knowledge of Derek Coleman's illegal activities until your legal team contacted us with evidence. We appreciate your transparency throughout this process," Jennifer responded. "TechFlow's only interest is in providing the best possible solution for your technology needs." Hamilton nodded approvingly. "Based on the merit of your proposal alone, without any tainted influence from Derek Coleman, our Technical Evaluation Committee unanimously recommends TechFlow Solutions for the integration project." The contract signing was scheduled for the following Monday, pending final legal reviews. As we drove back to TechFlow's offices, I felt a mixture of professional pride and personal vindication. Our proposal had won based purely on its technical excellence. That evening, Sarah and I celebrated with dinner at her favorite Italian restaurant. The candlelit atmosphere and Sarah's radiant smile made the professional victory feel even more meaningful. "I'm so proud of you," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. You maintained your integrity throughout this whole complicated situation. It was the only option. Compromising my principles would have destroyed everything I've built since leaving my family's house. As we shared tiramisu for dessert, my phone buzzed with a call from Helen. Madison had shown up at her house that afternoon, demanding to know where I lived and accusing me of sabotaging Derek's career. She was practically hysterical, Helen reported, screaming about how you destroyed her family and ruined Derek's life. I told her Derek destroyed his own life by taking bribes and she needed to leave my property immediately. Did she leave? Eventually, but Boris, she's not thinking rationally right now. Be careful. Sarah and I drove home in thoughtful silence, both processing the implications of Madison's escalating desperation. Her world was collapsing, and she was looking for someone to blame besides herself and Derek. Friday morning brought more developments in the Coleman Industries situation. Derek Coleman had been released on bail but terminated from his position immediately. Coleman Industries' internal investigation revealed the scope of his corruption was much broader than initially suspected. Derek Coleman accepted bribes from at least 6 different vendors over the past 2 years. Linda Foster explained during a conference call with our legal team. The total amount exceeds $200,000. Coleman Industries is reviewing every contract he influenced and may face significant financial losses. The ramifications extended beyond Derek's immediate termination. Coleman Industries announced they were severing all business relationships with companies that had participated in the bribery scheme, including canceling existing contracts and blacklisting those vendors from future consideration. Derek Coleman's previous company where he worked before joining Coleman Industries is also under investigation, Foster continued. We're canceling their consulting contract immediately. That detail caught my attention. Derek's previous employer was now losing business because of his corruption at Coleman Industries. The web of consequences was expanding rapidly. Monday's contract signing proceeded smoothly with Richard Hamilton personally thanking our team for maintaining ethical standards throughout the process. TechFlow Solutions exemplifies the kind of business partner Coleman Industries wants to work with, he stated during the brief ceremony. Your integrity and technical excellence make this partnership valuable beyond the immediate project scope. The 7-figure contract represented the largest deal in TechFlow's history and positioned our company for significant growth over the next 3 years. That evening, Sarah and I attended my engagement party, hosted by her parents at their suburban home. The backyard was decorated with string lights and fall flowers, creating a warm and welcoming atmosphere. Sarah's family had embraced me completely, treating me like a son rather than an outsider. Boris, we're so happy Sarah found someone with your character and values, her father said during his toast. Welcome to our family. The contrast between Sarah's family's acceptance and my own family's rejection couldn't have been starker. Here were people who celebrated my achievements and supported my happiness unconditionally. As the evening wound down and guests began saying their goodbyes, a familiar car pulled into the driveway. Madison emerged from the passenger seat, followed by Patricia. Both women looked determined and angry. Boris, we need to talk, Patricia announced loudly, drawing attention from the remaining guests. Sarah moved closer to my side, her hand slipping into mine in a gesture of solidarity. Her parents watched with concern as my family drama invaded their celebration. This isn't the time or place, I replied calmly. You weren't invited to this party. I don't care about your party. Madison snapped, her voice shrill with desperation. You destroyed Derek's career out of spite. You sabotaged our entire life because you're still angry about moving out of Mom's house. The remaining guest fell silent, watching this confrontation unfold with obvious discomfort. Sarah's parents moved protectively closer, clearly prepared to defend their celebration from unwelcome drama. Madison Derek destroyed his own career by taking bribes from vendors. That has nothing to do with me. You're lying. Derek would never do anything illegal. You planted evidence or manipulated the investigation somehow. Her accusations were becoming more unhinged with each sentence. Patricia stood behind her, nodding along but looking increasingly uncomfortable with Madison's public meltdown. The FBI has financial records proving Derek accepted over $200,000 in bribes over 2 years. Those are facts, not opinions. You're making that up. Sarah stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. Madison, you're disrupting a private celebration with false accusations. You need to leave. Don't tell me what to do. This is between me and my brother. I'm not your brother, I said quietly. We stopped being family when you manipulated Mom into kicking me out of my home. Your husband's corruption has nothing to do with me. Patricia finally spoke up, her voice uncertain but defensive. Boris? Maybe Derek made some mistakes, but Madison's right that you could have helped them instead of pursuing this vindictive path. The absurdity of her statement left me momentarily speechless. Here was my mother, who had chosen Madison over me 8 months ago, now demanding that I sacrifice my professional integrity to help the same people who had destroyed our family. Helen's voice cut through the tension like a sword through silk. Patricia, you're embarrassing yourself and everyone here. I turned to see my grandmother approaching from the side yard where she'd been admiring Sarah's mother's flower garden. Her expression was fierce with protective anger. Boris has shown nothing but class and integrity throughout this entire ordeal, Helen continued. Meanwhile, you chose a manipulative stepdaughter over your own son, and now you're blaming him for the consequences of her husband's criminal behavior. Mother, you don't understand the whole situation, Patricia protested weakly. I understand perfectly. I understand that Boris paid half your mortgage for 2 years and got kicked out when Madison decided she wanted his room. I understand that Derek Coleman went to prison for taking bribes, not because Boris reported him, but because the FBI investigated his corruption independently. Madison's face flushed red with rage and humiliation. You don't know what you're talking about, old lady. The insult toward Helen was the final straw. Sarah's father stepped forward, his voice commanding and final. That's enough. You're both leaving now or I'm calling the police. As Patricia and Madison retreated to their car, Madison turned back one final time. This isn't over, Boris. You'll regret destroying our family. I didn't destroy anything, I called back. I just refused to enable your destruction of everyone else. The remaining guests rallied around Sarah and me, offering support and expressing outrage at the intrusion. But the real revelation was yet to come, and it would change everything I thought I knew about my family's motivations. The weeks following the engagement party confrontation brought an unexpected period of calm. Madison and Patricia seemed to have retreated into their own crisis management, dealing with Derek's legal troubles and the financial collapse that followed his termination from Coleman Industries. Sarah and I focused on wedding planning, finding joy in choosing flowers, tasting cakes, and imagining our future together. Her family's unwavering support provided the foundation of love and acceptance I'd never experienced with my birth family. Have you thought about whether you want to invite your mother to the wedding? Sarah asked one evening as we addressed save-the-date cards. I honestly don't know. Part of me thinks she might realize her mistakes if she sees me genuinely happy. Another part of me thinks she'd just find a way to make the day about Madison's problems. Whatever you decide, I'll support completely. This is your choice to make. 3 weeks before our wedding date, I received an unexpected call from Patricia. Her voice sounded strained and exhausted. Boris, could we meet for coffee? I have something important to discuss with you. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a neutral location downtown. She was already seated when I arrived, looking older and more worn than I'd ever seen her. Dark circles under her eyes suggested weeks of poor sleep. Thank you for coming, she said softly. I wasn't sure you would. What did you want to discuss? Patricia fidgeted with her coffee cup, avoiding eye contact. Frank and I are getting divorced. He's moving out next week. The news surprised me, though. Perhaps it shouldn't have. Frank had always been peripheral to our family dynamics, letting Patricia make decisions while avoiding conflict. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you okay? No, I'm not okay. Derek's arrest made Frank realize how toxic Madison's influence has been on our household. He said he couldn't watch me destroy my relationship with my son for a stepdaughter who manipulates everyone around her. This was the most honest assessment of Madison I'd ever heard from Patricia. But I remained cautious, knowing her pattern of temporary clarity followed by renewed enabling. Madison has been manipulative since the day she moved into our house, Patricia continued. But I was so afraid of losing Frank that I convinced myself supporting her was the right thing to do. And now I see what it cost me. I lost my son, my marriage is ending, and I'm financially struggling because I used your mortgage payments for Madison's wedding expenses instead of paying down our loan. The financial confession confirmed what I'd suspected, but never proven. My contributions to the household had been diverted to fund Madison's elaborate wedding, while Patricia lied about applying the money to the mortgage. Patricia, I appreciate your honesty, but what do you expect me to do with this information? I want to apologize. Genuinely apologize, not because I want something from you, but because you deserve to hear it. She reached into her purse and pulled out a check. This is for the mortgage payments I misappropriated. It's not complete restitution, but it's everything I can afford right now. The check was for $8,000, roughly half of what I'd contributed over 2 years. But the gesture felt more significant than the amount. I also want you to know that I've started seeing a therapist. Dr. Williams specializes in codependency and family dysfunction. She's helping me understand why I've made such poor choices. That's good, Patricia. You need professional help to break these patterns. She explained that my fear of abandonment has made me vulnerable to manipulation by people like Madison. I've been so afraid of being alone that I've sacrificed healthy relationships to maintain toxic ones. This insight showed genuine self-awareness that I'd never heard from Patricia before, but I remained guarded, knowing that understanding problems and changing behavior were different challenges. I don't expect forgiveness, she continued, and I don't expect to be invited to your wedding, but I want you to know that I'm proud of the man you've become, and I'm sorry for failing you as a mother. Her apology felt authentic in a way that surprised me. There were no excuses, no attempts to minimize her actions, no requests for immediate reconciliation. I accept your apology, Patricia, and I appreciate you seeking therapy. That shows real commitment to change. Will you consider having occasional contact? Maybe coffee every few months so I can show you that I'm working to become a better person. Simwe. I thought about her request carefully. The anger and resentment that had consumed me for months had gradually softened into sadness about lost opportunities and broken trust. I'm willing to try limited contact, but with clear boundaries. No discussions of Madison or Derek, no requests for money or favors. And if you revert to enabling toxic behavior, I'll walk away permanently. I understand completely. Those boundaries are fair. We parted that day with tentative hope for eventual reconciliation, though I remained realistic about the long road ahead. Trust once broken so severely required years to rebuild. 2 days later, I received a phone call that would provide the final piece of the puzzle surrounding my family's dysfunction. Boris, this is Linda Foster from Coleman Industries. I have some information you might find interesting about Derek Coleman's corruption case. What kind of information? The FBI investigation revealed that Derek had been under financial pressure from gambling debts. He owed over $50,000 to illegal bookmakers when he started accepting bribes from vendors. This detail explained Madison's desperate financial situation and her increasingly erratic behavior over the past year. There's more, Linda continued. Derek's plea agreement includes testimony about a broader corruption network. He's cooperating with federal prosecutors to avoid a lengthy prison sentence. How does this affect Coleman Industries? We're implementing new procurement oversight procedures to prevent future corruption. But Derek Coleman will serve 18 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. Madison's husband was going to prison. Their financial situation was irreparable. The manipulation and toxicity that had dominated my family for years was finally facing real consequences. That evening, I shared the developments with Sarah over dinner at our apartment. "How do you feel about Derek going to prison?" she asked. Honestly, I feel sad for their children who didn't choose any of this. But Derek made criminal choices that hurt multiple companies and families. Justice needs consequences. "And how do you feel about your mother's apology?" Cautiously hopeful. She seems genuinely committed to change, but I've learned not to expect too much too quickly. As our wedding date approached, I found myself reflecting on the journey from exile to triumph. The family that had rejected me was facing the consequences of their toxic choices, while I had built a new life filled with love, professional success, and genuine relationships. Madison had accused me of destroying their family, but the truth was simpler and more profound. I had refused to enable their destruction of themselves and others. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to participate in someone else's toxicity. The final confrontation was still coming, and it would test everything I'd learned about boundaries, forgiveness, and the difference between family loyalty and self-respect. Our wedding day dawned clear and crisp with autumn sunlight streaming through the stained glass windows of Sarah's family church. As I stood at the altar waiting for my bride, I was surrounded by people who had chosen to love and support me unconditionally. Helen sat in the front row, beaming with pride and joy. Sarah's extended family filled several pews, having welcomed me as one of their own from our first meeting. Notably absent were Patricia and Madison, though Patricia had sent a thoughtful card wishing us happiness and promising to respect my decision about wedding invitations. Her restraint felt like genuine progress rather than manipulation. When Sarah appeared at the end of the aisle in her flowing ivory dress, my breath caught in my throat. She was radiant, her smile conveying pure happiness as she walked toward our shared future. Her father, tears in his eyes, placed her hand in mine with a whispered blessing. "Take care of each other," he said softly. The ceremony was everything we'd dreamed of, simple, meaningful, and filled with authentic emotion. When we exchanged vows, I promised Sarah that she would always be my priority, that our family would be built on honesty and mutual respect, rather than manipulation and conditional love. "I promise to choose you every day," I said, looking into her eyes. "To build a life where love is demonstrated through actions, not just words." Sarah's vows brought tears to my eyes. "I promise to stand with you through every challenge, to celebrate your successes without jealousy, and to create a home where you feel valued and appreciated for exactly who you are." The reception was held at a lakeside venue where we'd had our first serious conversation about the future. As Sarah and I shared our first dance, I felt completely at peace with the choices that had led to this moment. "Do you ever regret the way things happened with your family?" Sarah asked as we swayed to our wedding song. "I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret choosing my own well-being over their toxicity. That choice led me to you, to this life, to becoming the person I was meant to be." During the reception, Helen approached us with news that would provide closure to the long chapter of family dysfunction. "Boris, I have something to tell you about Madison. She called me yesterday." I braced myself for whatever drama might be unfolding, but Helen's expression was thoughtful rather than alarmed. She wanted to apologize. She said losing everything, Derek's imprisonment, their house, her marriage, has forced her to examine her behavior patterns. She asked me to tell you that she's sorry for the pain she caused. Did she ask for anything else? No. She specifically said she wasn't asking for forgiveness or contact, just that she wanted you to know she finally understands how destructive her actions were. This development surprised me. Madison's entire identity had been built around manipulation and avoiding responsibility for consequences. Genuine accountability represented a fundamental change in her character. She's also entering a residential treatment program for personality disorders, Helen continued. Apparently, Derek's plea agreement required family counseling, and the therapist recommended intensive treatment for Madison. 3 months after our wedding, as Sarah and I settled into married life in our new home, I received an unexpected letter from Madison. The return address showed a treatment facility in Arizona. "Dear Boris," the letter began. "I'm writing this as part of my therapy program, but also because I owe you an honest accounting of my behavior. For years, I manipulated Mom's fear of abandonment to get my way, knowing it would hurt you, but not caring about the consequences. I orchestrated your exile from the family home because I wanted your room and resented your financial contributions that made my demands seem unreasonable. I convinced Derek to take bribes from vendors because I wanted a lifestyle we couldn't afford on his legitimate salary. When the corruption investigation began, I tried to manipulate you into compromising your integrity to save us from consequences we deserved. I've spent 32 years believing that getting what I wanted was more important than how my actions affected other people. Losing everything, Rick's imprisonment, our financial ruin, our children's removal from our custody has forced me to confront the reality that my choices have consequences for innocent people. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for contact. I'm not asking for anything except the chance to acknowledge that you were right to protect yourself from my toxicity. Your refusal to enable my destructive behavior was an act of strength and wisdom that I couldn't appreciate at the time. I hope you're happy with Sarah. From what Mom tells me, she sounds like someone who appreciates your character the way I never did. You deserve love that builds you up rather than tearing you down. I'm committed to becoming a person my children can be proud of when they're old enough to understand what happened to our family. That means taking responsibility for my actions and working to develop genuine empathy for the people I've hurt. Thank you for showing me what healthy boundaries look like, even though I fought against them for so long. Sincerely, Madison. The letter represented a level of self-awareness and accountability I'd never imagined Madison could achieve. Reading it, I felt a mixture of sadness for the years of unnecessary conflict and cautious hope that she might genuinely change. Sarah read the letter and shared my complex emotions. It sounds like she's finally facing the reality of who she's been. It does, but I'm not ready for contact even if her changes are genuine. The damage was too severe and lasted too long. That's completely understandable. Forgiveness doesn't require relationship. Over the following months, Patricia and I gradually rebuilt limited contact through occasional coffee meetings. She was making genuine progress in therapy, developing insights about her codependent patterns, and learning to establish healthier boundaries. Dr. Williams helped me understand that enabling Madison's manipulation wasn't love, Patricia explained during one of our meetings. Real love sometimes means saying no and allowing people to face consequences. That's a hard lesson to learn, especially when you've spent decades doing the opposite. But I'm committed to change even if it means being alone while I work on myself. Patricia never asked to resume a full mother-son relationship, respecting my need for ongoing boundaries while demonstrating consistent growth and accountability. My career at TechFlow Solutions continued flourishing. The successful Coleman Industries implementation led to additional major contracts, and I was promoted to principal developer with equity participation in the company's growth. Sarah's nonprofit work expanded as well, launching job training programs that helped hundreds of veterans transition to civilian careers. 2 years after our wedding, Sarah and I welcomed our first child, a daughter we named Grace. Holding her in the hospital room surrounded by Sarah's family and Helen, I reflected on the profound difference between chosen family and birth family. She'll grow up knowing she's valued for who she is, not what she can provide to others, I whispered to Sarah as Grace slept peacefully in her arms. She'll grow up seeing a father who chose love over toxicity, Sarah replied. That's the greatest gift you can give her. 5 years have passed since that devastating night when I found my belongings packed by the front door. The man who was exiled from his childhood home has built a life filled with genuine love, professional success, and authentic relationships. Madison completed her treatment program and is slowly rebuilding her relationship with her children, though Derek remains in prison. Patricia continues her therapy and has developed a small circle of healthy friendships. We maintain cordial but limited contact meeting for coffee every few months to catch up on surface-level topics. The contrast between my former family's dysfunction and my current life's health couldn't be more stark. Where there was once manipulation, there is now honesty. Where there was conditional love, there is now unconditional acceptance. Where there was toxicity, there is now growth and mutual support. The greatest lesson I've learned is that family isn't defined by blood or obligation. Family is defined by people who celebrate your successes, support your struggles, and choose to love you consistently, regardless of circumstances. Sometimes the family that matters most is the one you create, rather than the one you're born into. I've learned that setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's essential for healthy relationships. I've learned that refusing to enable destructive behavior is an act of love, even when it feels harsh in the moment. And I've learned that sometimes the greatest victory isn't getting revenge on people who hurt you, but building a life so fulfilling that their approval becomes irrelevant. Madison was right about one thing: our family was destroyed, but she was wrong about who destroyed it. Toxic people destroy families by demanding that everyone else sacrifice their well-being to accommodate destructive behavior. Healthy people build families by choosing love, respect, and mutual support over manipulation and conditional acceptance. As I watch Grace play in our backyard while Sarah tends her garden, I'm grateful for every difficult choice that led to this moment. The exile that seemed like the end of everything was actually the beginning of the life I was meant to live. The family that rejected me is dealing with the consequences of their choices. The family I chose is thriving because we built our relationships on a foundation of genuine love and respect. Sometimes the greatest gift toxic people can give you is forcing you to discover that you're strong enough to live without their approval. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own well-being? What would you have done if your family kicked you out for a toxic relative's convenience? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family dysfunction and building healthy relationships. And please share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose your own happiness over toxic family obligations. Thank you for listening to my journey from exile to triumph. Remember that you have the power to build the life you deserve, surrounded by people who value and respect you. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is walking away from people who refuse to treat you with basic human dignity. May you find the courage to choose healthy relationships over familiar toxicity, and may you build a life filled with genuine love and authentic connections.